Okay, hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Chris, your trusty mentor. Welcome to the group. Welcome to the Critique Wednesday night critiques. I'm going to take this up as your mentor to help you and our community grow. And of course, I grow as well as I do this with you guys. So that's going to be fun, I think. So the more the merrier. So the more people that participate, the better it's going to be. And let's just make sure I'm live. If you want to make comments in the chat, you're not able to unless you do something specific, which I posted to the Facebook group. But you have to go to streamyard.com/or// Facebook, and then apparently uh, you can type questions, do questions, and so on. I'm not sure exactly how all that works, but you can let me know, and hopefully chats will show up, questions will show up. Thanks everybody for contributing your artwork to the Google's photo drive. For right now, that's the best way for me to do this, to kind of gather everyone's artwork, and maybe that's good enough. We'll do it just each week, and then I'll clear out the folder after tonight. And so if you have suggestions about that, let me know. But let's see how this Google Photos thing works. So we are at 7:02, so we're just getting started. I hope everything's working and everything's live. If it's not, let me know in the chat if you can. Leave the chat, leave comments, and someone just let me know. And I'll try to look at the chats, glance at them. Let's see. By the way, I just finished some professional work. I did a couple book covers, and that came out pretty good. There, hey Maggie Gorgon, what's happening? Great. Now, okay, so Maggie, you figured out how to leave or how to get into this chat thing with StreamYard. So I'm using StreamYard, and you can't, leave chat messages in a Facebook group unless you do what I suggested, looking at the link on our Facebook group at the top of the announcements. You can click on that. So cool. Yes, I finished a couple of book covers, and they're hard. They're hard. You have a client brief, and it's you're a hired hand basically. So there's not a lot of creativity, but it's good exposure, and it's kind of an honor to be able to do that. It's almost like a movie poster is a glorified book cover. So book cover, movie posters, those are cool. I like those. Um, in fact, what I have right here next to me is one of the book covers. So it was just a straight up portrait, and that was really fun to do. So Matt Manny, what's happening? Yeah, great to have you here. Where are you guys from? Just leave a comment. I'm here in San Francisco, California, very near San Francisco, Northern California. And I'd like to know where you guys are hailing in from. Hi, Denise, I guess it's Denise, right? Just let me know where you guys are from. Hi. There's another one, Facebook user. I don't know your name, but it says Facebook user. Um, yeah, New York. Okay, Maggie's in New York. Awesome. That's cool. So it's like 10:30 there, 10 o'clock, something like that. So we'll try to get you tucked in bed. We won't be too late. So we'll get you in, stop in time for your bedtime. That's important. But you're probably a night owl because you're an artist, right? Quebec, Canada. Awesome. That's so cool. Quebec's on the East Coast, right? It's not Vancouver's on the West Coast. Quebec's on the East Coast, I think. So yeah, SoCal for Matt. Oh, New Jersey, NJ, or I can't tell if it says NJ. Looking to move to Southern California for atelier training. Cool. And I can't tell. Yeah. Okay. So let's get going. Yeah. Jump in. Um kind of wanted to talk about why do this? Why do portraits? Why draw portraits? What's the fascination? And I want to say a couple things about that because I think it's important. But before that, I will say that I'm going to try to speak at the forefront of my cognitive ability. Okay. Um, I think that's going to challenge me. It's going to make it better for you guys and maybe more exciting, more informative. So I want to challenge myself to just speak at the razor's edge of what I'm capable of. Okay, so that's um, that's going to be live, and it's going to be as real as I can make it. Okay, um, and then to the question why we do this. Well, Professor Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist, he said that the face is amenable to voluntary manipulation and that you can control your face to such a degree that you can move one nerve axon. And so what that means is the face is a very high resolution it was a broadcast screen, okay? Very high resolution, down the slightest twitch. And people are always looking at the face. Why? Because again, it's a broadcast screen that is broadcasting people's stories 24/7, right? So all the emotion, the anger, the sadness, the the friendliness, the happiness, right? It's all there, and we need to know that from a practical standpoint because we need these relationships to survive. We need to know if that person I'm looking at is a friend or a foe, if they're approving us, if they approve of what we say, how they're reacting to us, if they love us, if they're friendly, saying, come here, or if they're not saying, go away, or maybe we need to get away, right? So that's all the practical stuff. And we could also talk about drawing the face as a spiritual kind of thing because people are we could refer to them as a soul. And so what would be the greatest pursuit perhaps as an artist is to capture someone's soul on the canvas, on the paper, on your computer screen, right? A living, breathing soul participating in, the creation as creators ourselves and reproducing this, conceiving, as it were, something um, on the page. And that's exciting, right? It could go very well or it could fail, right? So there's that excitement there, that participation in being a co creator with the creator. But if you don't like that wording, soul, if you're soul adverse, you might say, well, it's just consciousness. We are conscious beings. No one knows what consciousness is. We don't know where it comes from. And so we are, again, capturing an aspect of a conscious being, a person. And telling their story. So we have consciousness, soul, and we've got story also layered on top of that. So it's a great endeavor. It's fascinating, and I was going to write all that down, but I didn't. So let's kind of let's move to the first person here. Now, I didn't get the names. It would have been helpful to tell everyone to write their names, uh, but I didn't do that. So I don't think people probably did that. Um, Nevertheless, we shall jump in here. Um, okay, Michael Jordan, you got a good likeness. I can tell it's Michael, but let's talk a little bit about what you might be able to improve on this, and we can talk about. Let's talk about the first thing that we want. Number one, okay, is we want to do the la ah. Okay, from my vocal teacher, he taught me to make pure, pristine vocal tones, you need to relax and open up your vocal tract and mouth to produce pure tones. I'm going to take that metaphor and we're going to use that. We're going to create clear um, lines, shapes, values. We want them to be clear and pure and simple because the more simple, again, the idea, whether it's structural or philosophical, it has an impact on the viewer. Okay, and they'll be able to see it with clarity. It's the read. It's called the read, and that has an emotional impact as well. And remember, doing this is about capturing the soul, but it's also about telling stories. So we need that thing to read very well, very clearly, and produce emotion. Because if we can capture the viewer's emotion, that is what it's all about, right? If we can make them hang around our picture a little bit more, if we can, keep their attention just a little bit more, right? Also, if we can make them feel something, anger, fear, sadness, joy, that's what it's all about. So emotion is king, okay, you might say. Now, so that's all that to say is that the first thing of this la is to look. And so we want to just slow down and at what it is that we're seeing. And we can ask ourselves, you know, is this male or female? Right? Okay, male. Um, what's the gaze doing? Is it straight ahead? Is it three quarter? Is it side? Or is it three quarter back? Okay. Is it overall dark lighting or overall light, right? Is it high key? Is it low key? So we can go and ask about the gaze, right? But we could also say, are we on top or are we on the bottom? So those are all things that if I just take 30 seconds, I'm going to be ahead of the game because my tendency is to get really excited and jump in, get my pencils and wade into deep water and then be disappointed later halfway through or at the end of the session when something's not right and it's too late to correct it. So just by doing this observation, so we have a head here that's, you know, we could talk about head types and we can talk about planes of the face. So if I talk about the gaze, one of the things I see on Mr. Jordan here is that, his gaze, right, is off to the side. It's to the left. It's not neutral. So here's neutral. Here's where Michael Jordan's gaze is. It's off to the left, right? So that's the first thing that I see about this, that your gaze is somewhat neutral and it needs to be that center line, right? So the gaze, we can talk about the center line and the gaze. It's a little bit more to the left. Okay. So if you miss that, okay, the whole thing is going to be off. So we start there. We start from the general to the specific. And if we miss the general, if we miss the big overall impression, the overall big concept, the blocky front, two sides, top and bottom, the box-like nature of the head, we're going to be telling a different story than the one we want to tell, technically speaking. So, for example, I see a little bit more cranium than you've got, right? So yours is more of an oval, and it needs something to be added here, right? You need to add a little bit to it. I'm just to say I'm gonna be hard hitting, but I'm gonna try and be gentle too, because um, it's easy to be critical, right? It's harder to be constructive. So I'm gonna give the good, I'm gonna give the bad, and then I'm gonna finish it up with a sandwich and give the good and sum up. Okay, so it'll be constructive criticism. I learned this from John Watkiss. John Watkiss, the late John Watkiss, was a famous illustrator, amazing painter. He did the character designs for the Disney Tarzan animated films. Great anatomy, great painter. And he came into one of my classes in college, and I showed him my work, but he did a demo in front of the whole. He didn't do a demo. He did a critique in front of the whole class. Everybody put their stuff on the wall, and I thought he's gonna rip these people up and down, everybody, because there was some, obvious things you could rip on people, and he didn't do it. He was shocked me. He kept it very positive. He kept it constructive, and I learned something that I was like, God, I thought he was just going to be such a jerk, and he wasn't. He was humble, and so I'm going to strive for that. So what you have here is really good shading. Okay, nice value range from dark to mids to light. So you don't have any problem committing and pressing in and expressing the full range of charcoal pencil. That's good, okay? Because some people can't do that. They're a light touch, and they're afraid to go dark, and some people the opposite. So you're doing good with that. You're doing good with your shapes, and you're doing, good with your edges. So all that stuff is working well for you. And of course, we want to get a little bit better. And trying to get a likeness of Michael Jordan, that's the hardest thing to do, is to get likeness. So to get a likeness, we have to definitely understand the proportion is key, right? So the distance between eyes and nose and mouth and bottom of the chin, right? And not only so, in addition to the gaze, so we need the gaze, and we need the vertical placement of the features to be correct. And we need this vertical placement to be parallel. They can't be like this, or we're not going to get the likeness, right? I hope that makes sense. Things need to line up parallel. Of course, if someone is looking three-quarter, they're going to line up along, you know, a little bit more diagonal according to perspective. Okay. But we're talking more about a front gaze here. And I suppose at this point, we can talk about the shading, because there's a difference between shading, okay, shading here, and expressing form. And shading, we tend to just think, well, it's kind of dark. I'm going to put some dark there. Or it's light. I'm going to put less dark there. Or it's middle, right? And we just smudge stuff around. And we're not really sure, but we know that's what we should do. Um, that's one level of understanding. But if we think of light and dark as having kind of a binary relationship, every dark has a light and every light has a dark. So you could think of it as every Luke Skywalker has a Darth Vader. Okay. And, if we have, let's say, this, and the light source is here, and we just have this rock, let's say, we're going to have a light side and a dark side with a little shadow, right? The light and dark are opposite. They must be opposite. If they're not opposite each other, if they're not in that kind of binary relationship, and you have this, you know, they're not really going to work. They're not going to say this. They're not going to say this. Something's going to be broken about the message, and it won't be communicated. Okay. So when you're shading, right, you're trying to express form. Well, the head in its most simplest form is a box. So a box has a front, two sides, a top and a bottom under there. It actually has six sides because there's a back. But the most we're ever going to see is three of those sides. So with Michael, we can see a top, two sides, a front, and we can't see the bottom. Okay, good. You got that. Then we want to express that a little bit more clearly, right? So we have a front. Where does it end? We have a side. Where does that begin? And so the idea of the box logic comes into play. Um, let me see if I can pull up here so we can see. Okay, this idea right here, the most simplest plain head that you could get, low resolution, boxy, right? And we want to go from very low resolution, blocky. That's why they call it the block in. Very boxy, straight line, block in. And then we'll move up the ladder. So we'll go from something like simple to complex, meaning we'll move to here, right? We're adding in some plain information. And then finally, we can go, let's say, to here, a little bit more or much more complex, right? So another way to look at it is maybe, going from flat and 2D to 3D. How do we get there? We use lighting, we use planes together in concert. So maybe this might be helpful. To look at this. The concept on top is lighting a sphere, okay? We separate the lights from the darks. That's job one. Then we add a value to the deep shadow. Okay, so now we have three values, the light and two values in the dark, right? And then we add the highlights on the light side. So now we have four values. And then we adjust our edges. So keeping it really simple, just 4 steps. If we come down to the second row and apply it to a human head, you've got separating the light and dark family, okay? Then you have the deep shadow and low value, so we're adding a dark value to step 2. And then we're going to add the highlights and local value in step 3. And then we're going to adjust our edges hard and soft. So in concept, that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep it really simple for ourselves. So if you had, um, if we box it up, let me just take this stuff off here. With this idea with getting the gaze right. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to beef this up just a little bit. Okay. See. So we've got to get the gaze. You got the shape really good. It's about 3-2 from the front. And then we have the center line. The gaze is a little bit to the left, right? Here's the center line that's neutral right there. And then we add just a little bit to the back. But the biggest mistake is everybody goes right for the features, right? They try to make the eyes and they try to figure out the nose. And we miss the whole. We sacrifice the parts for the whole, and things can go wrong proportionally. But generally, the eyes are in the center. If I take a little sight from Michael, his eyes are a little bit above center, and you've got that. Perfect. The brows are just a little bit above that. The brow is curved. And from the brow to the bottom of the chin, if I go halves with that, you've got the nose. So we're vertically spacing and placing the features. You got that perfect. Then you can divide up from the bottom of the nose into halves or thirds. I think you got that pretty good too. So now we want to go add the ear. So extend a construction line here. These are just construction lines. This is not the drawing. We're not drawing yet. We're spacing and placing. So whether it's the center line or finding, using a construction line to either measure or to find the placement of something, it's kind of not the drawing, right? Okay, I'm going to straight line this stuff. And basically what I wanted to convey was, put a little sense of the head here connected to a neck, because it's got to be connected. Otherwise, a head floating in space can look weird. And the reason why things look weird is because people don't connect them. So keep in mind connection. So now here's the idea of the box. We have a front. Okay. We can see right here the rhythm of that plane separating the front from the side. We're asking ourselves, if it's a box, where is the front and where is the side? You can see it here. There's a nice separation. The value is showing it to us. Okay. Then we're going to separate the front part of the cheek from the side part of the cheek and jaw, right? Want to get that stuff really clear, really blocky, really basic, low resolution, right? Because it's easy to fix. If I go for the details too soon, if I go too detailed, it's hard to erase. It's hard to get out of that. And I'm just gonna, unless I'm Kim Jong-gi, right? Unless I'm a master, savant and have a photographic memory, then I won't be able to do that. I need to build it up, right? You probably need to do it too, because your visual library is not that strong yet. You need a strong visual library to do that. So now we've done the major plane separation, front to side, right? All this is front. All this is front. Maybe I'll use a different color here. Front. So we've separated the front from the side. Okay. That's job one. It's got to be, you can't put the curtains on. You can't paint your house inside until you put the walls up, right? You have to put the walls up. Otherwise, it's just going to fall right down and your decorations aren't going to mean a darn thing. So this is what I mean by, you know, boxing it up and getting really, really strong with this idea of very simple, blocky stuff. And then you can build from there, right? So we have the nose that has a front, two sides, and a top and bottom, right? It's more narrow at the top, wider at the bottom. So it looks necktie, right? You have the glabella in there. And so, we unfortunately to get a likeness, you have to hunker down and draw and measure more than you want to probably. Measuring is the thing I really don't like to do. It's why my drawings, if I run into problems, it's because of that. I run in too quickly, throw caution to the wind, and do not measure. So don't do that. Number one thing is have your pencil sharpened. Please do that. That's also something my students resisted heavily is the dull, crappy pencil. Sharpen your pencil and measure a little bit. Right? So I'm just building this thing and I'm doing it very, very lightly. The blocking is very light. And then I can line up things by the center of the eye. Straight down plumb line will give me, the edge corner of the mouth. Now his mouth doesn't come all the way out. So I would note that. I would say his mouth stops here. He's got kind of a small mouth, right? On this side, it's pretty much coming to the terminus of the lips there. So I would go ahead and touch, right? Good stuff. And then we've got a tooth cylinder or barrel of the mouth. And that's going to, be like a barrel here. And the teeth are going to, wrap around that top and bottom. It's wrapping around. So I can put that in. That's why this is darker here and darker here because it's turning away from the light. It's lighter here. The light is pretty much in front. So we're going to push the sides back to make it, appear like form with a modeling tone, so you'd make those sides darker in here as it wraps around and goes away from the light. Okay. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I just wanted to show kind of the setup of how you could get this thing, blocked in, starting with that blocky, the planes of the face, and making sure, you get that first. And then moving to the shading, then you'll know, okay, the edge between the light and dark, just like on a sphere, I know exactly where to put that. So now you're realizing the illusion of form beyond the concept. The line drawing is like the concept of form, right? Here's the concept of a square or of a cube. That's the concept. And I can push that illusion now by adding, values appropriately. Okay, so you just do that with your face and you would just, put the shadowing now instead of kind of guessing, and you can make it stronger by expressing the box-like nature of the head, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of that. Let's move on here. Good job. Loved it. All right, next. Let me check the comments. Anybody saying anything? It's mine. Oh, okay. Dennis, I think. Okay. Hit away. I did. Thank you. Cool. All right. So now we have Mimika. Mimika, are you here? What's going on? She's not here. I don't know where she is. Where does she hail out of? But we have a very nice study here. And she's got her value scale at the bottom, which is very handy. I would recommend that. Maybe just 5 values is good. And one of the first things we want to do also is to squint and compare. In my initial time of evaluation, right? Just when I sit down, I look, I observe, I breathe, right? And I squint. Squinting helps with the values. It helps to separate out the color and the detail. And so we're going to kind of do that. Now, Mimika, you've got great anatomy, great parts, right? The features are all really nice. You've got great hair. I'm thinking that in the halftones, right? Interface, the halftones, that's not the shadow information. It's the light information, but it's kind of it's not the highlight, but it's that middle value halftones. You could go darker, okay? You're a little bit hesitant on these lights in this area here. All this stuff, right? This stuff in here. Those are those halftones that you'd want to go a little bit darker with to express, the form. And here too, I'm going to switch up. When you squint down, right, all this stuff is really, really dark. And you've kind of made a choice to lighten it up. That's cool. And I like how you have the focus. You used your darks and your lights in the eyes. So we go there first. And that's really good. I think the line work though, like describing the laugh lines, is a little too hard when I compare it with here. It's not so dark. And here in the compression between the upper and lower lip, you've got that line going all the way across. Maybe just have it go, part way the way it is in the reference, right? And then there's a bit dark on that lip there. And so I think your halftones could just go a little bit, a little bit darker than you have it. Just push it just a little bit. When I squint down, I get something like that. Oops, my phone. When I bring it over here, right, I bring that value over to here. That's where it's at. Okay. So you're a little too light. And I would just push that around and I would squint. I'd squint at the model or my photo and squint at the drawing and just kind of apply that value where I can. Right. And all this here is dark. See, your drawing looks a little spotty, right? It's one of the two main problems that people have is dirty looking drawings, muddy, or they look spotty and noisy. And it's spotty and noisy because you're noticing too many details. You're losing the forest for the trees. So you're noticing all the trees and kind of not really expressing the forest, so to speak. And that's going to make your drawing look noisy and bumpy, let's say, like a sack of rocks. Because a sack of rocks is going to have a bunch of bumps, right? It's a light and dark kind of bumps. We don't really want that. We want to unify our darks, right? So now I have a light on the left side, a middle, and then we have the values. We did good with the values. I just want to push that on the cheek just a little bit, right? Coming out of that, a cast shadow, right? We could push that a little bit and then have it wrap around. And then we do have a core shadow right in here. And that's something like this. Okay. You can keep it, kind of really flat value shapes. And then you can assess the edges. Right. So I put something down, assess it, adjust it, right? The eye, the eye socket, the eyelid has a little bit darker. Okay. Eyebrow, you got it good. Then that lid wraps around. I want to express that. And now we have a little bit more, we've squeezed a little bit more architecture out of it. And that's, I think, what you're going for, right? A little bit of realism. So I'll just put something down, touch it, like in the corner of the eye, touch it. If it doesn't work, erase it, adjust it, right? It's just a constant missing the mark and then correcting, missing the mark and correcting. That's really teleological, where you have a goal, you have a destination, and through means of failing and then assessing the feedback, keeping the feedback loop open, you eventually adjust, and you get there, right? So you have this goal, you're shooting for a goal. And let me see if I just push that dark, like in the occlusion shadow here, what it would be like, a little bit. You might have been able, although I love your technique around the outside boundary of the head, right? It's beautiful, beautifully done. I want to push it just a little bit more so I can have some contrast with the all the beautiful stuff and the light that's happening. It's contrast that makes art really go. If you don't have enough contrast, it's kind of bland but peaceful, right? If you think of a foggy day, there's less contrast, less color, less shape contrast and edge contrast, and it's peaceful. And sometimes you need peace, right? But sometimes you want something to pop, and so you just need to push the contrast a little. Okay. And then the eyes. I think too, those are really, really good. I might just calm it down just a little bit, like not put so much in the iris. It's definitely lighter in the pupil, but it's not as light as you have it, right? Because you have your iris as light as the highlight. So we're just going to calm that down a little bit so the highlight shows up a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Okay, and then give it a little cast shadow from that upper lid onto the sclera. Might beef that up just a little bit. And then go ahead and follow that idea of this core shadow up the temple. Right, so kind of just unifying and then looking at it really small, or walking away from your drawing every 15, 20 minutes, and just that really helps to see if it works really small, see if it holds up. And so something like that. And then I would just go through and adjust my edges And let me just try that real quick. Let's say if I've worked very low resolution and blocky, I might have some hard edges that I could just go ahead and say, look at my reference and say, what's a soft edge? What's a hard edge? And keep those and account for those things, kind of just try to be honest with it, like going through and hard, soft, you know. And that's it. That's really simple. And you can go a long way with just those basic things. It's amazing how easy that is. But if you set it up right with the planar structure and the value structure, then you can just, do your edges like magic. You do it in your sleep. Do it while you're on Facebook. Not really, but you know what I mean. Okay. Something like that. Great work, Mamika. Thank you for sending in your work anytime. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next one. How are we doing here? Anything in the chat? What's going on, people? Okay. All right. We're at 7:46. All right. Again, when I take a moment as a habit, right, 30 seconds just to squint and compare. Is it a round head, right? Is it a square head? Is it triangular? Okay. This head is pretty round to me. Okay, guys, I'm going to take a quick break. I got to do something. Somebody's calling me. 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for your patience. Maybe the East Coast is sleeping. Yes, maybe. It's serious. Okay, so we're looking at this and we're looking at the head type. It's a round head type. Another thing I can do is look at where we are in relationship to this little guy. And I want to know, right, where the gaze is. Here's a neutral gaze, right? And we have a gaze that's off to the right. But not only is it off to the right, here's neutral, off to the right, my right, and then we have a tilt. So now we have more complexity. We have a gaze off to the right, and we have a tilt. we have a tilt, and we have a tilt like this. So we're slightly underneath. Okay, we're under. And we have a tilt not straight up and down, right? We need to know this as a standard. There's our plumb line. But we've got something like that, right? It's like that. There's perfect plumb line vertical, but this one is like that. So now we're starting to get a lot of mileage, get a lot of utility out of just stopping for a second and saying, what are we looking at here? Okay. And I think you've done wonderfully on this, but I'm actually I made a mistake here. We are, the camera is above this child's head and the child is looking up. So we're sort of we're neither up nor down. We're above really, but the child's looking up. So that kind of counteracts, if we were above, we'd be seeing more of the top. But we're seeing kind of some top and some bottom. So we're just a little bit under, but we are actually above, okay, the head, but the head's looking up. So we have a tilt like this off center. We have a gaze to the right, and we're above the body. We're kind of looking down the body, but the head is tilted up. And so it's looking kind of, kind of at us. All right. So I think you did great with that. You got this tilt, but you missed the tilt a little bit, right? There's the tilt, and you missed that tilt. That's going to affect everything, all proportions, planes of the face, and it's going to definitely impact getting a likeness. Okay, it's going to make it harder. You got to get that squared away, so to speak. Okay. Then I guess what I'm going to say here is that, let me see, there's a concept called big form modeling. Okay. And big form modeling is the idea that you have, a form here. Let me just grab this. Big form modeling is so amazing. So let's say you have a human head, and I'm just going to fill it with, I need some dark here. A little bit lighter. Okay. I'm going to take a big brush. And if we just go back here, I'm just going to ask, okay, is this thing that we're looking at, this child, is it overall dark or overall light? Well, the lighting is straight down the middle. That's called split lighting with portrait photography. It's even, half light, half in dark. So you might say it's 50% dark, 50% light. I need to kind of know that. I need to know where the light leaves off and the dark begins. And forget the details, forget the secondary forms. We're going for the big overall impression. So the big form modeling would say, I don't care about, this is an egg shape overall. And it's got some dark and light. There's my dark, there's my light, right? Just do that again. It's something like a 50-50. Okay. That's what I need to know. I don't need to know anything else. Just gonna, right? Light side, dark side, flat, 2D. If I adjust the edge, it becomes like form instantly, like an egg. Okay. You add, we can add a neck to that. And we would just light that accordingly. This has, let me do that again. Just very simple here. And I'm going to put that on a layer down here. Okay, so I would just light that, same thing overall. Okay, that's what I need to know. Big form modeling. Once I get that, right? This is like a little design. I could do this as a little sketch, okay, before I even start. Because if I miss that, right? If I miss this, it's not good, okay? And you missed it a little bit. Okay, so let's just, right, and let's put this off to the side. This would be a little thumbnail that you could do and kind of leave it there. And just refer to it, it's a little bit, that's called the design. The Italians use that word as just what's the design, right? Because it's not just anatomy, it's not just parts. There's a design here which takes in the idea of composition and figure ground and that sort of stuff. And so that can really help. Plus, it's the most low resolution, basic idea that we need to keep because clarity has the most impact, simplicity works for us. Okay, so the tilt, the big form modeling, the lighting, because your drawing is looking dirty, right? It's looking muddy. And that's because of this idea of, not having your lights and darks separated enough. And you need to separate that stuff, right? It's in the dark. That's that big form modeling, the big idea. That's the big idea right there. And it brings in some drama, right? It brings in form, drama right away. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Then we can go with the secondary forms. I think the line, kind of using the line here around the nose, right, to kind of express that maybe is a little too much, right? The harsh line around everything. Maybe you could back off on that just a little bit. And then I could take squint, right? And look at the light side and say, all right, I have light, dark. Where can I add a halftone or even the shadow? Let's go with the shadows, right? In the sclera, that's dark. Pupil, iris, dark, right? A little occlusion shadow there. I might even, if I squint, just include this as a whole shadow shape. Okay. Eyebrow, local colors, dark. So I'm going to make it part of the dark family. Just really deciding those simple delineations between light and dark. Okay. Dark right there, you got that. All this is dark. The teeth are not white, right? If I take a sample of the teeth, look at where they are on the color wheel. Pretty dark, right? The teeth. They're down here, 70% dark, right? So make sure that you're squinting and comparing and not drawing, what you think is there. Draw what's there, draw what you see, right? Have your value scale with you and compare, squint and compare. Compare this ear on the model to your drawing and see if they, if you're getting it, right? You can tell that. It's like fun stuff, right? So now we have some nice light and dark. Let me just put some white back here. Right, so we have this. It's a simple big form. Now we've gone to medium form, right? So we have the big form and we have the medium form stuff. And then we could go even smaller to the tertiary. And I would just go ahead and like adjust my edges on this, right? Soft or hard. Most of this is soft. For a child, soft edges are good. For a male, more masculine, more hard edged, more straight lines are good, right? For female, make things a little more round, a little more curvy, right? A little more curves is good. So you can strengthen up your values. And then I can move to, you know, I could do a little bit on the light side. And then I can move to the darks and say, okay, you have nice darks in here. And we could just move that step a little bit more and make it find a core shadow for that forehead connecting to the brow, right? So I'm adding a value in the dark side, keeping it really simple. And you did that pretty good, right? There's an occlusion shadow from the alar facial groove, bridge of the nose, right? In here is usually dark, that side plane of the nose into the eye socket, right up to the tear duct. That's usually a bit dark in there. Okay, the ear is dark over here. And so we're just sculpting this thing out, And you got it a good way there, I would say. And these are just tweaks now, right? To get it to take it a little bit further. And I'm squinting and comparing. Gotta squint and compare. That would be your habit, I would say you must do, right? We all must do it. And then I can move back over to the light side if I'm happy with that. Right, that big form modeling idea. And then do a little bit. Notice how the light's kind of coming from the top right. I would say it's coming from the top right. Right, like here's the light. Where am I here? Here's the light. Photoshop. Oh, because I'm on multiply. Okay. And it's in the front a little bit. And it's kind of coming down like that. Okay. So the head is darker at the top than it is at the bottom. So if I come back over here, I'm going to think about the fall off of light and go ahead and show that, right? Let me put this back on normal. Oops. This is going to be multiply. I want this to be normal, right? So light falls off very quickly. It's 1 over the distance squared. So the fall off of light happens, those rays of light, the photons lose energy pretty quick. And so now I've got something like that. That's my big form modeling. And so if we come over here to your portrait and I added something like that, I'd just take a really light, I'd make it darker down near the chin and I'd make it lighter up near the forehead. Just as a gradation, right? It's just a subtle gradation. Now you're focusing in on that right eye. Okay. It's not really everything at once. It's what you want me to see first and second and third, what you want the viewer to take from your experience of this child, you know? Maybe it's the wonder in the kid's face, right? And you want to focus in on the eye, then use a gradation for that. Okay. So that's really good. Just use some of those tips of big form modeling, um, slowing down and taking a look at where you are in terms of the tilt and the gaze, okay? And just making notes of that. All right, let's go to Michael O'Hare. I think this is Michael. Michael. Okay, you're still up. Oh, Maggie's still up. Hey, Sampico, what up? You still here? Cool. Great to see you, man. That's awesome. Sampico was one of my students on the mentorship. I worked with him one-on-one, and pleasure. That's in my mentorship course. If you guys are interested, you can go over to drawjuice.com and work with me. Okay, so here we are. Michael's output is great, right? He's always posting in the group, lots of drawings and stuff. So here we see he's got a nice likeness. I could tell who this is. It looks like the person. It's hard for me to tell about, he had it clipped to the board and then I brought it into Photoshop and kind of manipulated the angle. So I don't know if he got the angle right. I put it as close as I could get it. So I would say the part, again, problem number 2 is sacrificing the parts for the whole. And so some of the big impression of this is a little lost, but we have the parts. But I would say in the values, the halftones are what you're missing, right? So that mid value, the local color of the skin is, you've got really nice dark darks, no middle. And so bravo for pushing in and, using the dark darks, because again, that's hard to do for a lot of people. But then being a little light-handed, not so heavy-handed, and maybe just squint, right? And when I squint, like if I turn this black and white, the kid's face is not white, that color information, when I squint down and the color goes away, I just see a half tone, a local value that is let's say a 20% or 30% gray, right? It's something like that. Let me put this away and bring it back. I can't drag this thing. Okay. And so you can see in the color square there what it is, right? The darks, you've got them really dark and nice. You've got some highlights, and those are really good, nice range. But right in here, in the local color of the skin, we want to just darken it down just a little bit. And you can see the grass or the surface behind him, that's white. That's really blown out in this area here, right? But his face is darker than that. So we're comparing, right? Value is contextual. Um, if you're doing teeth, right? Don't give us all the teeth like that. That's just doesn't complement the sitter, and it doesn't look, good on average to do that. Just you can give us the silhouette of the teeth, along the edge. Where does it break up, right? Like just give us something like what are the teeth? What's the characteristic flat 2D shape of the teeth? the divisions of the teeth there. Don't go through here like that. Okay. That would be my, it's a choice that I usually make because I don't like showing the teeth. It just ends up looking not like teeth. Okay. um, just looking here, bouncing my eyes. I think he went, kind of too dark under the eyes, right? So this shadow information, it's a little too dark, so it ends up looking dirty. So you have to compare, this stuff here to this stuff here, right? This to this and to this. So if you can find a dark, like a black and a white in your reference photo, use those extremes, the white, black. If you don't have anything, just paint it in the corner, right? And use that and say, well, this, you're asking questions. Is this black? No. Is it white? No. It's somewhere in between those extremes. So if you can define your extremes, do that because it's going to come into play when you're modeling and rendering flesh, right? You did really nice in here. That looks good. That looks pretty good. I'd say it looks good. Here you did it nice, but it could be a little bit, less, right? Less of a line right there. It's very subtle. So once you get your line in, once you get your nose placed in, then do your edge assessment and say, is that a soft line? It's very soft. It's almost non-existent, under here. Okay. And then we can come in with half tones, again, on the forehead. You have a plane right there. You might want to express that. That explains why it gets darker. Um, explains why it gets darker in this area, right? This thing. It's not just a dark smudge that we have to do. It's, there's a plane in here and it's moving away from the light. And so it's getting darker. Oh, go ahead and put that in. You don't need to know too much anatomy, really. Just really look at it. Okay, same thing here. I might just push that. That's that modeling tone. Again, the modeling tone is a tone used to push the sides back. That's all that it is. Just kind of like, again, touch it, see if it's in the right place at the right size. And then I'll do my edge assessment later. There's a camera, there's some bounce light, camera right. It's lighting up his cheek just ever so slightly. And there's a core shadow there. Actually it's a little bit darker and then the cheek is a little bit lighter. Right, so if I think of my sphere, if I highlight, half light, core shadow, right? That's what I'm doing now, the core shadow. Then I want to come in and soften that up, make it a real core shadow. And then make it, a little bit darker on the core shadow than the cheek because that's receiving the key light. There's a light kind of evenly lighting up his face. It's very even all the way around on his face. I want to just lighten up the middle of that cheek. Just go there, lighten it up just a little bit, right? And then on the other side, pushing the sides back on that cheek to make it turn, right? Side plane. The cheek is front plane. And then the edges, make those edges characteristic of what it is. Just want to catch that lid a little bit darker. Okay. And of course, you could just do this for hours and get it perfect, but you're not going for perfect, right? We're not doing photorealism here. We're doing a variation of realism, but with some expression. Inside, the eye socket, orbicularis oculi, the top border of that is dark, right? Casting shadow. And then that's pushing in here at the root. I'm going to soften that up. Usually the transition from the eyebrow to the skin is a place where you could taste soft edge. Okay. Nice. I like it, Michael. And remember the whites of the eyes, they're not white in this one. Let's just check. Why I cannot pull this out is a mystery. Why the heck I can't make this bigger? I'm doing something wrong, probably. Okay, so let's sample this sclera. 50% gray, almost 50% gray. They're not white. This one's a little different, right? No, still not white. So the sclera is never white. I never make it white. The only thing I make white in the eyes is the total highlight, because I can't express the infinite array of values and colors in my piece of charcoal or Conte or pastel or oil paint. So I save the white for that special place, and the black right next to that, because that's where I want you to look. Cool. Your eyes, they look cool, but maybe a little too black, but you got nice highlights in there. I like that. Okay. Good stuff, Michael. Good to see you. You're here, but let me see. Yeah. Thank you, Facebook user. Okay, I'll just keep going here. We're almost, let's see, what have we got? We got this one. This one is complex. It's like two heads. You're killing me. I don't know who this is, but I love your value and your design sense. Oh, here's what I mean. The shapes, the values are very clear. You might be a graphic designer, huh? Very clear. Okay, I know what it is right away. The shapes are a little bit off, right? Like that's kind of missing, the big overall blocky proportion of this thing, height to width. But once we get inside, you're doing an amazing job of clarifying these subtle tones. And that's what's hard for people to do. You've done that quite beautifully. I definitely admire that skill to go in there and take something like this and just go, I just see, this simple shape and that simple value. It's a shape value, take this as a whole thing and then break it down. And you're designing, so it's really part of the shape design. And that's an advanced move in art, right? And being able to take this as a shape, and not be too heavy-handed with it. Everything has a shape. And if you watch animation a lot and you see animation of a billowing smoke, like an explosion effect. Um, they animate that, the puffs of clouds, the explosion, everything is a shape. The waterfall, the rivulets, separate rivulets of water coming down. The animators just break everything into a shape because they have to color it. And, you could take that and say, okay, and learn from that. Um, so that every half tone you see in this beautiful skin, right? You could just take that and beautifully shape everything off and account for it, right? Like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a graphic style a little bit, it's pushed graphically. So we could talk about style. This is um legit, you know, shape design in here. Everything's super clear. So I like that. It's beautifully rendered. Look at that in there. So you're making sense of everything. And if we just okay, um, great application of the medium. So I would say you could put your dark darks. So let me just get out of that. Put your dark darks somewhere you want us to look, right? So in her eyes, because she's the superstar, right? You want us to look maybe at her eyes. You want us to look, at his eyes, because it's generally in portraiture where you want people to look. So beef that up just a little bit. I was just thinking of Sam Pico because we've been through this with him on how to get a likeness and critiquing his stuff, right? Right. Okay. So you could just beef it up and use your dark accents judiciously. And now you have a greater range between dark and light. There's some stuff in between here because everything was in the sort of you stopped here on the value range and the paper's white. So you had this, you know, truncated value range because that was your light, light. That was your dark, dark. You could push it a little bit more on either side, perhaps. But the paper, okay, that's fine. So we'll push the darks. That's something we can change, unless you have a white charcoal pencil, right? In which case you could put a light accent somewhere. But you don't, and that's fine. We can always go a little bit darker. So that's what I would say. And then with your, um, with regard to the proportions, it's everybody has, some problem with proportion. And so maybe I could just um, address that a little bit. So what would I do? Again, okay, just real quick, because this is where we most often fail, is that idea that, you know, oops, what is this? What's the gaze? What is the tilt? Forward, backward, right, right to left, and so on. And so her, she's taller than she is wide, right? It's more of like a 3-2. Here's the neutral, straight ahead with a tilt, right? So here's again, we'll go with a standard, straight ahead, neutral, right? Then we have a gaze change, right or left. And then we could take that whole thing and add complexity to it by, a tilt like that. So we start with a standard, something we can uh, wrap our mind around, and then we start to add complexity, right? Not, right to left, up, down, backward, forward. And that's the way I would kind of think about getting into it. So we've got the tilt, and now we've got this gaze. And if we just do a wrap around, I kind of missed that, like that. And then if we wrap the eyes somewhere around here and make a cross, we can see that now it looks like the person's looking up and to the right. Just by this, where the vertical and horizontal axes cross, they create a kind of a front. Okay, very simple. And you can easily get out of this, fix it, change it. That's why I like it so much. If you miss it, fix it now. You know, as soon as you spot your problems, fix them. Don't wait. Have the courage to do that. Okay, I'm going to go back to full. Okay. And so that's how I would approach this. She's got quite the expression here. Right, so that's going to be a little complex to get to that. But she's scrunching up her eyes and all that kind of stuff. So this is a really wild portrait. And I'm cutting off some more, right? I'm always fixing things. Thinking about planes, thinking about shapes, thinking about value shapes, just to get this thing on the page, And that was mainly about, trying to get this proportion thing under control. Sometimes you need to add to it. Sometimes you need to cut pieces off like clay, like marble, and so on. So that is a really nice job. I like your graphic shapes and how you did that. Very clear. Values are good too. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one's really nice. I love this one. Okay. Okay. This one I just so well done. You've got a likeness. The proportions are really nice. And even though it's slightly off in terms of proportion and slightly, the gaze is slightly off, it's so well painted. It's just so well detailed that it makes up for it. This might be a caricature, actually. I don't know. But it could be a kind of, really nice caricature. But I can see the side plane of the head here, right? That's where that core shadow is. I kind of see it, but it looks a little flat, and I see more space here than I do here on this one, right? So that's what I mean. The tilt, the gaze is slightly off, where he's not, he's got a slight, tilt in the gaze, not tilt, but a slightly leftward gaze. Just looking here, bouncing back and forth. Nose is a little bit short compared to this guy, and a little skinny in here. But still, you can see you have a lot of latitude in getting a likeness. You can squish things, you can stretch things, twist things, and still get a likeness. And that's what's forgiving, really. I'm grateful that that is the case. And you can really manipulate things and still get a likeness. A lot of caricaturists do that very well. Like Sebastian Kruger. Look up the Sebastian Kruger. Uh, I think it's like something like that. German artist. Amazing Rolling Stones. Amazing Michael Jackson. Just whatever he does is so real, so detailed, and yet so stretched and so twisted that I don't know how it all hangs together, but it does. He's a master. Okay, so I love one. It's so well done. There's not, I mean, I could critique if we look at the value of the hair, right, and the value of the nose, they're closer together, whereas yours is a little bit further, a little bit light, you know. So I could beef up that side plane just a little bit of the nose, like in the occlusion area where the inner corner of the eye comes up against the side plane of the nose, and then that comes down. There's a little occlusion shadow there, right in there. This is all in shadow, right? This part. So you could just beef that shadow shape up, and then it extends down a little bit like that. That's making it a little bit more round. We're squeezing a little bit more architecture out of it, so to speak. Occlusion shadow in the crease of the lid. And, here, bottom plane of the upper lip. But these are tweaks, the whole thing stands very well on its own. I'm just, doing a crit here, take it for what it's worth, and just showing you little places where you can maybe get a little bit more out of it in terms of form. When I squint down, this sclera goes dark. It's part of the darks, all this thing. That thing is kind of all, I look at it and see that as a dark. um, that's it. Love it. Put your name on it next time. And great job. Good stuff. Okay. Let's go on to this one. We're 8:33. Okay. This one, great shape of the head. It's a round head. It's not square. It's not triangle. It's oval. Very good. The features look great. Expression looks wonderful. Position where we are, above, below, or neutral to the face, looks spot on. And I would say just go a little darker in the halftones. If I, you know, sample some, it's right in the middle, 50%. If I make it everything black and white, it's a 50%, just slightly above, right? Yours, almost white. It's almost the white of the paper. The darks, you did really good. Eyes look beautiful. Look at that reflection in there. The sclera, the iris pupil, love it. Great job. All the modeling around the lower lid of the eye, laugh lines, connecting the mouth and the nose. Real good stuff. It's the big form modeling and the overall impression of the value. So if I was just to take a little quick stab at that, I already sampled that. Scary, right? You don't want to go dark on a baby. So I totally get you, right? But, and you can, as an artist, you can make this choice. You can make it a high key drawing. You don't have to copy the photo. And I like what you did because it is a baby and you don't want to go dark. I think you made a great decision. Now let's But if we're going to just analyze it for, let's say this is a lesson on value, then we could just say, okay, how did we do? If we abstract out the value, how did we do? Just for argument's sake. And I suppose put this up here for a critique on some level. So big form modeling, the sides go back. Look at how it's light, you know, let me just bring back. It's lighter in here. Where am I at? It's lighter in here and it goes dark on the sides, right? This part's coming toward us, and this stuff's going away on the side. So we got kind of this, going away, going away, going away, wrapping around, going away, wrapping around. I guess that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. It's wrapping around and it's kind of going away. It's getting darker as it goes away from us. That's the idea. So that's the modeling tone. So effective. I learned that from Glenn Vilppu. You guys are familiar with Glenn Vilppu. So I would just go ahead and come back to here and sample this thing again and push the sides down or back with this. Right, just make it go, just to get some architecture, some form. This thing looks weird. Okay. And there is, here in the orbital bone here, there is some form there that you're going so light, you got nowhere to go, right? Because you're so high key. You could push into the darks just a little to create some form between the upper border of the eye and the nose, side plane of the nose. It's a little bit light here on the top part of the brow, like the outer border of the eye socket here too. You got it here. Nice. There's a bounce light coming from camera left. You got it there. You could also call it a rim light. Rim light. Very good. So I love that, and just think about the big forms and the light is in front. So the nose, it's just going to get pushed back a little bit. Like you could just sort of get the ball. It's light in the center and dark on the sides. Light in the center, dark on the sides. Dark on the sides. And you got that. Love that. Great job. So fun. Okay, babies are hard to do because it's just all round around. There's no structure to them. Okay, we are... Okay, Philip. Cool. Put your name there, but I didn't get it, but I see you now. All right, let's go with this. Nice job. I knew who it was. I hadn't seen the photo right off. I think I saw it in the feed in the group, and I was like, yeah, nice job. I'm just squinting and comparing, bouncing my eye back and forth. I think you got the tilt off, right? I just noticed that his tilt, everybody got the tilt wrong. I'm just going to go ahead and draw a tilt. That's what it is. Move it over. And that's, that's what I see. So that could be adjusted. The proportions are great. Values, excellent. The hair and details are excellent. So this one, I'm just going to say, great job. Maybe a little bit dark in here, right there. It's looking a little dirty, right? So you could just back off on that. So let's just take the dodge tool and just dodge the shadows. Where am I? Here. We don't want to, maybe notice that too much. Slightly there as well. Nice job. And I like the way the design, right? The way that you ended his lapel, and it's a nice shape and it fades off nicely. You considered everything. Every part of this drawing is considered from top to bottom, inside and out, as well as the shape design on the page, how it graphically breaks away from the page. Good stuff. Let's go. I want to talk about something else, but let's just go on here. I can't read the name on here, but this is really nice work. You can be proud of this one. Put it in your portfolio. And as I'm just looking, I want to say just a real, next thing you could do is push in the occlusion shadow where the lapel meets up against the vest, right? Where the coat goes behind the neck. It'll just push it back, dark against light, crisp edge, and it gives it some form and makes it, the illusion like it's going behind, right? Separate a little bit the value a little bit more and tell the form story. And that could, be good. A little bit there, a little bit there. And I wanted to say, I can't stop. This core shot, there's no core here, so it looks a little flat. And I would say if we're looking at that sphere idea, it's just a big sphere, a big primitive form. It's nothing more complicated than that. Then maybe you could give us a little bit more value there, and then we can see the reflected light. Of course, this digital Photoshop is just hard to do, right? Edge assessment, soft. And now, since we went a little darker, the context of the values makes a little more sense because we have a nice reflected light. Where's my, I don't know what happened to my brush. Oh, there. Yeah, reflected light, core shadow, half tone and light half tone. Okay, and that makes it turn. Okay, without it, it's a little bit flat. Okay. And I would just, back off just a little bit. Okay, cool. Nice. Beautiful. Okay, let's move on to this. Oh my gosh. Who is this? Jason Sealer? Is Jason Sealer in the group? Do you guys know Jason Sealer? A wonderful caricaturist. Does covers for Time magazine and all kinds of other things. I love this one. It's spot on. I can't say enough good things about it, and I can't say any bad things about it. The proportion, it's great. I don't know if this photo looks like it's been manipulated because the guy has a head that's not normal, right? So I don't know where the source photo came from, but it's great. And the proportions of the forehead being elongated are awesome. I love the folds of skin. Um, The rendering is especially good. The planes are reading well. You know, the oily skin, the specular highlight from the skin on the cheek, the forehead, the way the nose is a little bit more red, right, than this or than this, because that's where the blood is closer to the surface in the the cartilage of the nose, and it's nice to play that up. You can see that here. It's a little bit more on his painting, which is nice. In the cheek, right? Subsurface scattering. Great to play that up. You know a lot, my friend. The next level you could go to is the texture level. And so that's adding details and textures. You've got the details pretty good. The textures is where, you could go a little bit more. And it wouldn't be hard to do, right? Just a little bit. If you want it, right? It's already great. But if you wanted to take it a little bit more, you could add texture. Maybe I'll cover that next time. Because I can't tell you everything or you guys won't come back, right? I got to hold something back. But this is great. I don't know who it is, but it's so cool. Um, yeah, Matt. Okay. You're not happy with it. Come on, Matt. What's up with this perfectionism? I broke perfectionism, but it's still there. But you can be really proud of this. We can say that with everybody here. Come on, everybody. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what you're not happy with, but it's bloody great. You've been drawing for a long time. I can imagine painting and drawing. So let's just get honest, right? Humble doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to be a little bit harsh here. Humble doesn't mean a fake negation of anything that's said nice about you or your work. Humility is a realistic acceptance of where you are. And you could, based on that definition, you could say, thank you. Uh, yes, I've worked hard and I could be better, but I've really gone so far from where I was. And so it's okay to say, yeah, this one kicks ass. It's all right. If you can't say it, I'll say it for you. Okay. I'll be your cheerleader, my Matt. Okay. Fantastic. We could just sit here and look at this one because it's so good. But we got one more to do and then we'll wrap it up. This one, okay. Cardine, I don't know who it is, but everybody put your names on them somewhere in the corner. Okay, this is one of the unique caricatures from the challenge. And it's a challenge, right? It's like a plant person. And this one's hard to do because it's from imagination. And so there's not a lot I want to say about realism or anything like that. But maybe we could talk about design just a little bit. And I want to talk about something called layer caking and counterbalance. Let me see if I can describe those. Layer caking. Let me see if I can just take this and Command J, move it off to the side a little bit. Look at that. I'm a master with this stuff. Oh my God. Not really. Okay. Okay, so what I was going to say was these design concepts, they're really easy. One is called layer caking. That means that if I have a cake, I've got a mix of big, medium, and small shapes and micro details. Okay, that's the candles. in that order, in a kind of hierarchy. And this is really the theory of art. And we won't do that tonight, but we can do it another time. But I'll touch briefly on this that, it's the big shapes. We have a mix of shapes, but the big is the overall, taking the bulk of the percentage of the shapes. And then we have a little bit less medium, a little bit less small, and then your micro details. So what does that look like? Well, if I have, like a mouse, right? Here's my silhouette. Okay. Now I don't know anything about mouse design, but let's say I go with this theory here. I'm going to have like a little, thing where the infrared is. Okay. I'm going to have maybe some cut lines. Maybe, now I have two shapes, one here, one here. So I had a big shape. Silhouette was the big shape. And then I cut it up, right? And then I had two medium shapes. So I covered that. And then, I added another medium to small shape. And then I had the little, infrared port, infrared thing, right? And so now I could add, a logo or some other cool aesthetic design. So we have practical design and then we have aesthetic design. So this thing here is where, you hold it or maybe you click or it has some practical function. But then I could take that and make it more pretty, more aesthetically pleasing somehow, by adding just some color accent or shape in there or, you know, doing something like that. Now that's cool. Okay. And then I could split it up again, there's your right mouse button, left mouse button, or or I could make it more cool like that, you know. Oh, it really looks like a mouse. All right. But see, this could be anything. And just using the layer caking idea, I can design cars, mouse, a computer, character, creature with this idea. Okay. So that's one. Number two, just going really quick, is uh, counterbalance. Counterbalance, my friends, balance. Okay, that has to do with textures and shapes, but really quickly, you could have. Okay, so now we could have a big, small, and medium shapes, right? So now I'm mixing layer caking number one plus number two. So what? Right, I got big, medium, small. Okay, cool. Just playing, right? And then I'm gonna add the idea of the counterbalance. So that has to do with texture. So I could have, you know, something smooth, dark, because we haven't even talked about, adding value to this. But let's just keep it like I got something smooth. It's like a rock, a smooth rock, polished rock. And then I have, a piece of wood. What does a piece of wood look like? Right. And then I have, um, what else could I have? I don't know. I could have a stone, something really rough. So I have various levels of roughness. I got a smooth rock, a rough stone, and a kind of semi-rough piece of wood. And they have different textures, right? So I'm mixing up the textures, smooth against rough, against, semi-rough, and I could just play that game. I could just keep going, right? I could add something to it and make it smooth again. So I'm going smooth, rough. You know, this could be, this could be leather, or it could be fishnet. So I'm doing a counterbalance with countering one thing after another in terms of texture and local color too, because I could go light, dark, light, medium, dark, big, medium, small, and you just play the game. Okay, maybe I want this one to be dark, or maybe I want this to be the dark one. You know, and so that's that idea of counterbalance. It's not the greatest example, but it creates some interest in your eyes moving through. So you've got a lot here. I know this is kind of a long-winded way to go about this, but you could inject these into this. Now, I love the way you split this down the middle, half leaf, half. Okay, nice. But then when we get down here to the shoulder, it looks a little like maybe you could continue it like that, maybe, and then pop over here. So our eye goes here, and then it jumps down to here. So we have a read going. We have some movement through, and we have a nice shape here, and it has some nice texture. I'm just squinting down. Maybe the lips break that halving there a little bit. And this could go a little bit darker. So our eyes bouncing one way, the other, right? Creating some movement there. And everything is kind of symmetrical though, right? It's kind of straight down the middle. So that's why I'm kind of trying to put counterbalance into it, or maybe big, medium, small, so that your eye moves around. Um, you know, maybe the shoulder thing works better than what I did. And then you could, right, just pop it. You could have a dark background, neutral, to make her pop out. Maybe, or some kind of gradation, because it looks a little like there's not enough contrast between the skin and the background to hold it. So if I did that, maybe it could be something like that. That's not working. I have to choose. Just use a little gradation to, you don't have to go crazy with a rendered background. Now she pops just a little bit, right? So anyway, that's all I have to say about design. It's pretty fun once you start playing the big, medium, small, dark against light, against middle, and then adding textures into it. Fun, and you'll be surprised what you can do. So guys, I think that's going to be it. It's about 2 hours. I'm so thankful for your submissions and stuff, and thanks for being part of this group, this community. You guys are all growing. I'm watching you guys grow, and I'm really proud of you guys. And thanks for, taking the risk for this critique. And you can see I'm not mean. I'm trying to get over here to adjust this thing so you can see me. I think my machine is screwing up here. Okay. Yeah, I'm not mean, right? I'll try to be constructive, and I'll try to be hard where it needs to be hard, and I'll try to be nice and constructive and kind and all that stuff. Because that's where we grow. I think we need a bit of constructive and, reality, and then some grace and all that in there. So I'm going to sign off, you guys. Leave me some comments down below the announcement, and just let people know how it was, or how suggestions how I could improve it and stuff like that. We'll see you next week at Wednesday. Make sure your submissions have your name on them, and put your photo reference and art side by side in one file. That would help me a lot. Then I won't have to set them up like that later. Okay, you guys, God bless, peace out, and have a good night. Bye-bye.